Hi, I'm Wendy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you haven't painted with me before, you're in for a treat today. This is going to be so much fun and it's going to be so easy. We're doing a little orange tree scene and with a little door and stuff. Very cute, very fun and easy. So if you've never painted before, you are going to be guided step by step and I want you to paint along. So even if you're just checking it out, maybe not sure if you're going to paint, just get your paints out and paint along, see what happens. You never know. We're using just 3 brushes today, a 1-inch square brush, a 1/2-inch square brush, and a small round brush. And then I have the primary colors, which is yellow, red, and blue, plus black and white, and I'm using the Liquitex Basics paints. I'm using an 8x10 wrapped canvas, so it's, but it can be a panel canvas or even a piece of paper, whatever you got, cardboard, whatever you got, just paint along. So let's get started. All right, so first things first, we're going to use our large square brush first. That could be like a 2-inch or a 1-inch. Any kind of square shaped brush is going to be good. And we're doing really loose brush strokes to begin with. I'm using a 2-inch brush and I'm going to go ahead and make like a very earthy color. So I'm going to make a little bit of a brown. I'm using red and yellow mixed together and a touch of black. Just a touch of black though. You see that it goes really fast. And then that's going to give me a nice shade of brown. Now, once I have the shade of brown in there, I'm going to go ahead and map out a couple things. I'm going to go about maybe like 1/4 of the way up from the bottom, make a little line. And then I'm going to go just a little bit over from the left. So if I find the dead center of the canvas, that's my next line. So I have just a couple inches over from here. And I'm finding the right in the middle. I'm going to do another vertical line there. And we're going to make this into an arch. So I'm going to go up and then arch over and come down. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull some brush strokes with this, going like vertically at the top of this line here, and then horizontally at the bottom of this line. And then I'm going to add a ton of white to my color. So see how now it's going into a much lighter color. Maybe I add a little more red and yellow back in to create a little bit of a softer color. So sometimes that black will make it look really gray. So if you want it to look more peachy or whatever, just use a little more yellow and red mixed back in. And then I'm going to go in and fill in with this color, adding just some of this peachy kind of beige kind of color. And see, I'm just going around. And then same thing at the bottom. And we're just blocking in the canvas to get our major color sections colored in. So as you can see, we have this archway here, and then we have this kind of earthy color, much lighter, going and filling it in. Now I'm going to use the smaller brush as I go forward. We're going to paint this in with blue. This is going to be a door. I'm going to paint it in with blue. So I'm just using blue to start, maybe just a little bit of white mixed in. And I'm just coloring it in. You could use a bigger brush to color it in too if you want. Actually, I'm going to use a bigger brush because it's going to take a lot longer if I use the small brush. So I usually just go brush size based on how detailed it is. If it's not too detailed, I go as big as I can, because then you're allowing yourself to loosen up and it's going to save your arm and be a little quicker to get it in. But everyone has their own preferences. So if you prefer a smaller brush for certain things, then by all means do what feels right for you. All right. Notice how I'm going vertical with my brush stroke. A lot of the texture on the door is going to go vertically. So now that I have that in, you can grab a small to medium round brush. So usually I just use like a number 4 round or something like that. And we can make a little walkway here with maybe some little cobblestones. So I'm going to go into some gray. I'm just mixing gray, which is white and black. Really easy. You could also stick with like a brown tone. So maybe I add a little brown to that to make it a little earthy, so it's not like too different against this color. So it will look a little bit more gray because I mixed gray and then I added brown to it. So it'll be a little bit softer than just pure gray, but you could do pure gray too. And then all I'm going to do is make some little horizontal brush strokes that cluster together. And then as I come further down on the canvas, they're going to get a little bit bigger. So see how they're like smaller at the bottom or at the, like towards the door. And then as I come down, they're going to get a little bit bigger until by the time I'm at the end of the canvas, they're even bigger and maybe even going off the canvas a little bit. I don't know. I'm just playing around. Because the stones would look bigger as they come closer to you. And these are so rustic. We're going for kind of a rustic look here. And I just want to kind of do the space around the door. I'm not going like way over here in the painting. I'm going to leave this kind of open, but you could fill the whole space in if you wanted to. It's like totally up to you. And then what you can do is add a little more brown or black to your mix. And then just make sure that like the underside of those stones looks just a little bit darker than the top. So if you go towards the underside and almost put a little smiley face underneath with that slightly darker shade, it'll add a little bit of depth to the stone look of it. And then towards the top of each stone, you can add a little bit more white and make it look a little lighter. So this is just one way to get like 3 different shades on the shape. You should still see the first layer that you painted. And I'm doing this so loosely, but it matters because your eye is going to notice, hey, there's like, it's not going to literally think that, but it's going to notice like that there's more than one shade on the shape of the stones. So the shape of the stones is going to have a lighter shade towards the top, a darker shade towards the bottom, and kind of a medium shade towards the middle. And you can blend out the highlight and the shadow just a little bit if you want to make it look more smooth. Or you can leave it really more rustic like I usually do. That's just because I like painting that way. I like to leave it loose. Now I might go back to the medium square brush to add some more color to the door. All I want to do is make sure that I have some darker and lighter shades on the door, just like we did with the little stones. So what I will do to make a darker shade of blue is just add a little bit of red to it. Should still be heavy on the blue so that it looks blue still, but the red is going to make that blue look darker. And then with that, I'm going to go to the left side of the door. And towards the top here. And maybe a little bit at the bottom. So see, I can do that. And I can go around the edge, but maybe a little bit more narrow around the left edge. Or the right edge, sorry. So the left, I have a little bit of a thicker dark part, and then on this side it's a little less intense on the right. And then I could have some vertical lines pulling. See, that looks kind of fun. And then you want to maybe make the door look a little more inset into the building. So what you can do is, I'm cleaning my brush, but I'm still using the square brush. And I can go back to that, maybe that little bit of a darker brown color. So you're just using yellow, red, and a little bit of black. It's going to give you a kind of a medium brown color is what we're going for. And then along the right side here, maybe I might just go and make a little parallel line that goes along the right side of the door. It goes right along. And then we're just going to arc it up like that. And you can readjust your line from like the top to the bottom as well. So see, I can go in and kind of reestablish that line. Maybe even add a little bit of texture with that brown. This is like just a dry brushing where I'm really loosely kind of rubbing the brush and just give a little bit of texture. And if you want to soften that, just come back in with your peachy color and soften it. So it doesn't have to be too crazy or anything. You could just add a little bit of different colors coming on the bottom here. You know, it's so easy to layer and add just some more fun texture and stuff. Not too much pressure though. So don't feel, we're keeping it simple. But I'm going to add some branches with this brown color as well. I just wanted to clean my brush because I got some of that lighter color on there. So with your darker brown color, again, you're just using red and yellow and a bit of black. Maybe a little more black. I want it kind of make sure it looks rather dark. You want it to be pretty standing out. And we can always add more of this later too. So don't feel like, oh, it has to be like perfect on our first go. But I'm going to pull from the top down across on a diagonal towards the right. And I'm starting pulling from the left here. And then maybe I have another one that pulls down on the left side. So much fun. And I really want this reaching across the top. And it's pulling all the way down. And your branches are like, imagine you're painting wiggly Ys. So making Ys, little Ys. This further you get away from the base of the branch, which is like the largest part of the branch, so it could be really thick up here, then it gets thinner and thinner as you pull away from the base area. And we'll add more to that too, but for now, I'm just going to leave it. Let's add a little bit more to the door. I'm cleaning that medium square brush, and now I'm going to add like a lighter shade of blue. So white and blue mixed together. And then we're going to go in and add some of that to our door with some just really loose vertical brush strokes going in between our darker shades. And then you can really quick pop in with the brown brush. You can pop in like a little black door handle on the right towards the center right of the door. So now we have a little doorknob. You can clean the brush and add just a little dab of either white or light blue towards the top of that to give it a little highlight. And then voila, the door is pretty solid. Now I'm going to take that medium square brush to add some foliage. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our blue with yellow and a touch of red for a dark green. So I have a lot of blue, a little bit of yellow, and then that little bit of red is going to make it look more earthy and darker. And then what we're going to do is go up to the top and just add blobs around the branches of this dark green. And I'm just using the corner and pushing little blobs of color. This won't We'll like add layers to this to make this make more sense. But for now, I just want to get a little bit of this dark color, especially towards the top. And then as I come down on the branches, I can make these a little smaller by just barely touching the corner. And maybe I even pull one in on the door. So it's okay if it crosses over on the door. Maybe you have a little bit of that green color down on the floor on the right. Sometimes it's fun to just add color from above down below, and it doesn't have to make that much sense. Painting is fun like that. Okay, then I'm going to go to my round brush, and we're going to add our oranges. We're making little oranges on this tree. It's like a little orange tree. And oranges are just yellow and red to start. We'll add a little more depth. I'm starting with like a medium orange though, and maybe just a touch of white to help it be less transparent. And then we'll go in and we'll add little circles. And you can, like, a lot of times, like lemons and oranges and stuff, they'll grow kind of clustered up in some spots. But then you can just have some hanging on their own, you know, like further down on the branch or whatever. So it's very much customizable. And if it's not standing out, like add a little more white to it. And you might have to do a couple layers too. Sometimes you got to do a couple layers to get things to stand out as much as you want it to. So see, I can put it over the door a little bit. And I could have a couple that fell on the ground. Why not? All right, I think I'm gonna maybe just add one more over here. And then I'm gonna be like, that's enough oranges. Now, another thing you can do is add some more texture onto the walls and stuff like that. So while your painting dries, you could take like a large flat brush or a larger flat brush and add just a little more contrast if you want. Or you could just blow dry your canvas. But we do want the layers to dry just a little bit so we can layer more up here and make it look a little more just textured and have more depth. But notice how I can add a little more white to my peach color if I wanted to, and add some almost like highlights to my wall or my building that the oranges are going up against here. And that kind of, I don't know, I kind of like the way that looks. A lot of times in these rustic old places, like things are, you know, rustic. You can have a little bit of this color down here. There, I'm a little happier now with the color on the background. I felt like it was a little too like solid. Like I don't like the solid colors. It makes it feel flat. So if you add some dark mid light, you're gonna have a much better outcome. Now I'm gonna add some more fun stuff to the leaves with this small round brush. And that's just gonna be more yellow added into my green and maybe a little bit of white popped in as well. So the white is gonna brighten it as well as the yellow will brighten it as well. And then you can go and layer on top of those darker leaves. Don't cover them all the way, just, you know, paint a little bit of a highlight on them, and then you can make some more leaves with the brighter color kind of that are just on their own. This will help give it a little bit more funness up here. So notice how by just adding that second coat of lighter shade, it makes it look so much better. And it makes it stand out so much more on some of the darker parts of the canvas too. So if you want to go even lighter, you know, just add more white and more yellow and you can go even lighter. I recommend doing at least 3 shades of green. So we already did our dark, that's kind of a medium, and then you can go even lighter. Sometimes you just got to go over to your white and start mixing over here to make sure it stays really light, and then pop that in. And it doesn't have to go everywhere. Sometimes we get carried away. It's just that it's there in some capacity and like spread around to where it's not just on one side or whatever, but it's spread around kind of evenly, but it doesn't have to cover everything. You just want it to be there so that it has a place in the picture and it adds depth to it. So there's just so many ways to do it. You can even go back and add more dark or medium green. I'm gonna add like a little leaf to these ground oranges, maybe even adding some brown and putting like a little stem or something if you wanted to. And with that brown, you can even add like a little shadow under the oranges on the ground. Just go under them and like make a little brown shadow under them. And then you can add some more branches too. So even though we already added the branches, you can add more. Like, so maybe you want some just more like loose branches coming out that don't really have anything on them. They're just kind of naked. Now, plants have that. So we want to make it look interesting. So you have plants, little branches that kind of are doing their own thing, and then, you know, you got a lot of variety there. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is add a little more depth to the oranges by making a lighter and darker shade to go on that medium shade that we have. They're still really wet though, so I'm going to blow dry them so that I can layer on them more successfully. If they're really, really wet while you try to layer, it can be hard. So let's just make it easier and we'll blow dry it. Just a little extra yellow to my plate because I didn't have very much left. You want to make sure you have enough yellow and red to make some more orange. And you can even use orange paint if you want, because it will give you a brighter shade of orange, even though I think it's fun to mix it and it'll be perfectly fine. But just so you know, it is sometimes getting the premix color will give you a brighter color. Now I'm just going to take this yellow and mix it into the orange that I have to make a lighter shade of orange than our first shade. So just make sure, it looks lighter. And then towards the top of the shapes, I'm going to add just a little dab of that lighter shade. Just a dab. Again, I don't want to completely cover over the first layer. We're just adding to it. Maybe just a little white you could add to make it more pop a little more. So if you're having trouble with it being transparent, the white can come in handy. All right. And then I can go ahead and add some darker shades of orange, which is just more red. And that can go towards the bottom of the orange. I have a lot of yellow on there, so I'm kind of mixing a little more red in just to make sure my whole brush is with the color I want. All right, so now that it looks like I have a little bit of the light and dark on both on the orange, you can go ahead and do another layer of the medium color. So just the same way you made your first shade or something similar. It's going to be exactly the same. And we don't have to cover over the first layer all the way, but this will help tone down your shadows and highlights if they did get a little intense. Try to make sure you could still see them though. But it will also make your first layer of orange a little brighter and more opaque, especially if you had some see-through on your branches or anything like that. So you can really get in there and fine tune it a bit. And guess what? You can go back and forth as much as you need to. So like if you need to add more of your highlight back in again or the dark color back in again, that's fine. Or if you like it more solid, where it's not like too much of those other colors, you can leave it. So on most of my oranges, I can still see the dark orange and the light orange. Some of them got a little taken away, like some of it I can't see it as much, but I still can see it and it's subtle, so that's okay. As long as you can see it for the most part, you're good. It doesn't have to look dramatic. But if you don't see it at all and it just looks completely one shade, maybe go get in there and, you know, give it a little something so that you could see different shades. And then you can do any finishing touches you want. Usually in the end, I'll just make sure that I have some extreme dark colors and some extreme light colors. So for example, I can go in and add like maybe some black to the left side of the door. So see, I can go in and like re-outline the left side of the door and just sweep in a little bit of black around the edge. Right there makes it really dramatic. You don't have to, but I find that it it's like if you add these little boosts of contrast, it gives your painting a lot more depth. And I can add some little vertical black brush strokes, especially towards the bottom and the edges of the door, to give it a little bit more drama. Now, if it gets too crazy and you're like, I do not like that, that's too much drama, you can go back into your lighter colors and tone it down. So see, I can go in here. Maybe I add a little bit to the orange, the branches with black, or the leaves. You want to get in some dark contrast, and then you want to get in some highlights. So your highlights could be pure white, or they could be like light blue or whatever. I'm going to go with some pure white. So for example, I can go on the door and have a couple of pure white vertical lines, just like I did with the black. And now I'm like, whoa, it's popping out a little more, right? I could do some pure white on some of my leaves or the tops of some of the oranges. Just a little tiny little tap of white. And this is just in addition to like that light orange, which already is going to make the orange look like it has a little more depth, but the white is going to make them look almost shiny, and it just makes it look even more three-dimensional. And it makes everything just, what I feel like the white highlight makes things look kind of sparkly or something, which I like, but maybe you don't like it. So if you want it to be more subtle, maybe the white highlight isn't really your thing, and you don't have to do it. And if some of them got too intense, like my door, I think the highlights got a little too much there, I can just come back to the light blue, so white and blue mixed together. And then you can tone it down, just like the black got a little crazy over here. I can take some of that light blue over that, and I can tone down some of the white highlights just a little bit. So it's so easy to tone things down and make things look a little bit more subtle. And you can go back and forth, you can come back to the black, go back and forth. Do what you got to do until you like the way it looks, but then you're going to let it go. So I'm letting it go because I like to keep my videos at under 30 minutes if possible. And sometimes I go a little over like today, but that's okay. But we learned a lot. So you made me learn how to make a little stone path. We made a door. We made a little fruit tree. So we did a lot in this one. And I hope you like the way it turned out. This has like summer Italian vibes. So again, leave a comment. Let me know what kind of fun stuff. I'll do another painting of just like an orange still life kind of thing, but I wanted to put the oranges into a scene today. But let me know what other fun stuff you'd like to learn how to paint. I'd love to get your suggestions, and thanks so much for painting along, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.